Welcome to valuationpodcast.com. My name is Melissa Gregg, and I am a financial mediator and business valuation expert in St. Louis, Missouri. So this podcast talks all about business and valuation, but today I'm speaking with Paige Wiese. She's the CEO of Tree Ring Digital in Denver, Colorado, but she works around the country, and she specializes in digital asset management, works with business owners kind of when they're transitioning businesses or really growing their businesses, and when they're selling their assets and they don't even know where their assets are. Welcome, Paige. How are you today?
Doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is awesome. So today we're actually discussing an interesting topic of who owns your digital empire and protecting and valuing invisible assets. And as we kind of talked about this initially, I really was just like, okay, you should know if you own websites or your digital assets or things like that, because I'm a small potato and I'm doing a lot of those things. But some of the things that we quickly started to talk about is that there are a lot of people that don't know where their website is located. They don't have the logins to do anything with their website. They might not even know what IP they possess. And so you started already telling me like a lot of things, like mistakes you see, but what are some of the biggest shocks that you've seen or mistakes that you've seen when you kind of onboard new clients and start to take maybe an inventory of their digital asset picture, maybe?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. What we tend to see is, doing everything from web to marketing and everything in between from an online presence over the years, we've just realized we start asking questions as far as, hey, how do I log into your website? Where's it hosted? How are your emails handled? And they're just like, I don't know, or it's written down somewhere, or I'll have to ask somebody, but I know we have that somewhere. And it's never ever in a consolidated place or at the tip of their fingertips or something that they can recall right away. And so, I mean, that's like one of the biggest is it's just all scattered. They've set it up over the years and usually, yeah, successfully over the years, they've been building and growing their business, but they're adding another layer over time. And so all these layers really start to add up that one time you were using this tool, so you stored it over there, and now you've moved into a different tool. So now you're storing it, that login there. And you used a different vendor, and did they provide you those logins? And so that's a lot of what we run into. And the other is like they're just not asking the right questions from the vendors, whether they're hiring, virtual assistants, interns, employees, or vendors across the board. Like, yes, we're taught delegate, hire someone to handle these things, and you should. But as an owner, you still need to be taking that ownership back and making sure that once it is set up, you do in fact know how to access that. In an emergency, you do know how to work even past like two-factor authentication, and that it isn't set up with an old employee's phone number. I'm going to tell you right now, that's going to be one of the hardest things to crack and get back into is a cell phone number that's attached to an old employee that may or may not have left on the right terms. And so they own that account at the end of the day. And so you want to start getting legal involved to say, we need to go after them. We need to start putting some legal pressure on them to hand this back over.
Well, and like we probably even need to step back a bit because like digital asset management, I think even when people are stringing those words together, you know, we have a lot of founder businesses. We have a lot of legacy businesses that they are traditional manufacturing or businesses, and then they create a website. Then they start having maybe internal people, external people, like the one that you just said, it's totally true. Like it's attached to like phone numbers and emails that you just kind of get rid of because the person leaves. And I think at this time when technology is sort of exponentializing, right? We have to
Mm-hmm.
go back to basics and say, well, I had a person that was doing that. Like I don't change things on my website, I outsource that. So when I'm talking digital asset management, like how broad are we like what does that really mean? And what should be what some business owner is like thinking of all of these pieces It's not just your website, like it's way bigger than that, right?
Yeah, no, we've gone into, there's roughly 7 different pillars that go into the digital presence, and that's going to be everything from domain hosting, website, and emails, into marketing platforms that you're using online and social media accounts, into the digital brand assets as far as photography, videos, a logo, any intellectual property that's coming along with that, and trademarks, into security, backups, recovery, redundancies, all of that, into even privacy policies, ADA compliance, HIPAA, whatever types of things you might run into when we get to the compliance side too, and privacy protection. So there's way more than just, hey, I know I have access and ownership to my domain name and website. That's all I'm going to need over time. There's so much more to it, but that's the piece that gets so complicated, especially for business owners. And more so now, as you mentioned, with technology booming like it is yeah, back in the day, you didn't need a whole lot, flame your Google business profile, throw up a website, and hey, you're on business online and you're running and making some money. But now, I mean, you've got so many third-party tools you can get into, what plugins are being used to make your site work. What are you doing to accept payments online? What are you doing to do your email marketing blasts and all of that? And so we just start to see more and more of these tools come about. And so again, once it was easy back in the day to manage a few of these, but now we've identified there's over 300 touch points that go into having just one singular business online. And that doesn't mean an online e-commerce store. It just means having a digital presence online.
Well, and like all of the things that you just said, like even CRM, like you have all of these, and each kind of sector could be another different person, like some's marketing, some's IT. And I think, the other thing that was of interest to me whenever we were talking is that when we go to market with a business, right? When we take a business to go sell, they are really hyper, like we're hyper focused on the financials, right? Proving out what we're going to sell it for. We're hyper focused on, negotiating that deal and making sure we get to an LOI. But then we pop into due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where this is almost like, if this is the first time that you're looking at your digital assets is in due diligence, you're almost too late, and it's going to be really hard to accomplish due diligence in a rational pace. So if we reverse, like, how are you guys coming in? Is this putting together like, a workbook that now is like the roadmap for your digital assets, or what should we be aware of so that when we get to due diligence and we get this 18-page request from legal about everything that we own, like, this could be a shock for people that they don't have any capacity of where this stuff is. And I don't want to buy a business and have all of these outstanding little tendrils. So what are you seeing in due diligence, and how are you kind of prepping companies for this process?
Yeah, you're correct that it's not talked about too much until we get to due diligence. And it really isn't a topic of conversation. And, it was something we've started seeing more and more, but I think it's also because we're advocating for it more and more to come up sooner in the process, because it's not that it won't come up. A savvy buyer is going to ask these questions. But as to your point, as a business owner, you're not thinking about them. And when people are asking, like, yeah, help me list off, you're thinking, how many trucks do I have? Or what type of equipment for manufacturing do I have? Or, all of that, do I own a building or not? All of those is like tangible assets. And those are a little easier to start identifying, but no one's thinking about the digital assets that come along with that. And so that's where we come in. We've got a ownership mapping framework. We'll work with clients through that. We'll start going through all of those data points and saying, give us, this top level, if you will, and then we will go in and we will sort through and find all of the rest of the information, all of those 300 plus touch points, so that when you get to due diligence, you can confidently go to the buyer and say, yep, I've got it all. It's right here. And then that just makes them, one, to your point, it go a lot faster, and we're not going to have a deal derail during due diligence because you can't. And then at the same time, the way I look at it from a valuation side is, anytime a buyer goes in and they start to see hesitation, or they start to see chaos, or they start to see disconnect, they're gonna start like deciding, is this really a good deal? Is this really what we want to get into or not? How much have they been acquiring? We've got one company that has acquired probably 56 sites at the, or companies and brands at this point. They're not really that worried. They've got a
Mm.
system down, they work with us, we know how to make it all happen. But others that are on like their third, 10th deal, they may not have a full-blown team that's really ready to rebuild a whole website and to reclaim all of this. And so they start looking at it and go, it's going to cost us a lot more to go find this stuff or to reset it up. Or what are we competing against if we have a abandoned Facebook page that no one knows how to access, and we have to go start a brand new Facebook page for the business and start ramping that up? Now we're competing technically with ourselves. And
Mm.
that's going to take more work than just competing with the general population as you're getting marketing going, right? So
Right.
that's where the ownership mapping framework comes in, that we can go to the buyer with confidence and have all of that handled and take it off of the seller's plate, so they don't have to go and figure out every little detail. Just tell us, how are your systems working? What does that look like? What are we doing for digital continuity? And if you don't know who's in charge, let's identify those gaps well before, because it could easily take anywhere from, we've seen, from 3 weeks to a year to figure out how to gain ownership back in something. And oftentimes it could cost more when it comes to legal fees to say, no, you need to hire a lawyer to go fight this. The previous, co-owner still owns it. They're not willing to release it. They're no longer a part of the business. What do we want to do? How do we handle that? Right. And that usually isn't just a, oh yeah, here you go. There, oh, you're selling the business? Wait, how can I get in on some of this?
Yeah.
Right. Or what was the relationship? Why are they no longer a part of the company? And sometimes they're not so willing to play nice and hand it over. So we've seen all sorts of stuff. And the more we can get ahead of that, the better, because I do think within the next 3 years, you're going to hear due diligence from a digital side come up way more often than it ever has in the past.
Oh, for sure. And I can even see, like, okay, like with your example of Facebook, right? So you didn't purchase that asset because you weren't aware of it. The seller was like, well, you didn't purchase that asset. So I thought that you didn't want it. I kept it. But to that extent, even you might be able to create a new account, but it's going to trigger, you already have an account, right? Like, so right now we're going to spend 2 to 4 hours on a silly Facebook account that, is irrelevant, but also very relevant. To that extent, though, how many business owners do you think really have a clue of, because this is a marketing department, you know,
Hmm.
up and we're just trying to get business. So we're doing our CRM, we're doing, HubSpot, or we're doing this and that. Like, we're doing all of these apps to create things that have some sort of digital footprint. Even when you were talking about the pictures and the logos and the things like that, like when you start to work with business owners, do they even have a concept of how deep this goes initially?
I don't think they have a concept of how deep. We've even had to, as we talk to them and say, like, do you know where your logins are? The answer is typically yes. But once we really start asking questions, no, they don't. Or they don't I didn't know I needed that. So no, I just didn't know that I needed to have the logins to that particular account. I didn't know that was part of our systems and being used in that way. Or they're just not really sure what's falling under and being identified as, right? I think that they've got the right intentions. And yeah, I mean, they're doing anything and everything people tell them to have a successful business. That's how we got to the point of, should we exit, right? Is, I've got a successful business, I'm ready to move on. Or this isn't working, it's going completely south, I want to get out of it. What can I get for the what I've created thus far? But the more efficient we are, the smoother operations are running, the more you're probably going to get in the valuation. But that also means there's usually more tools, or there's more people involved. And most don't really know, like, oh, I didn't realize that our shipping rates were connected through this. I thought that our a CRM or our online store or whatever was handling shipping. We didn't realize a third party tool was being used to handle the shipping. And so then it's like, yeah, we need to go hunt that down and look what that looks like, because if we can carry that along through the sale and the buyer doesn't have to go make a new agreement with them, and maybe they can't get the same rates because of how long you've been with the shipper, hey, like that's something they can come back then and go, I don't know how you're getting those. And if we can't bring that over with us, we can't sell the product for the same price. So now we have to start looking at that is, a different, we can't raise the rates because we have to offset income. We need to be raising the rates because they're already just too low, right? So those are the pieces that you want to really understand. And the more you can confidently answer those going into the due diligence, like I said, you're going to have a buyer who's like, man, they're on it. They got this. I feel very confident. And they're not going to want to negotiate and change the valuation. They're going to see what you have and want to jump on it.
Right. And I mean, because a lot of times we're telling companies to get your financial house in order before you go to market for like 3 to 5 years, like clean up everything, not adjust it, like clean it up so it doesn't exist. It's not a skeleton in the closet. And this might just have to be something that you do in preparation for eventually selling in any capacity. Because what business owners might not understand is throughout that transaction, you're going to sign reps and warranties. You're going
Hmm.
to sign that this is what we own. These are the assets. A lot of these are asset deals. These are the assets that we are selling to you. And in some respect, you've lied in the fact that you haven't disclosed the assets that are there, or, it's going to kind of come back and bite you. Now, one question that I have, or a term, is like digital continuity. And I think that flows into what we're talking about as, why should somebody understand this digital continuity concept, and what should the business owners know about it? Because at the end of the day, you go and transact a deal and you're not being very clear about what you have because you're oblivious to it. Like that's not going to be okay, especially if there's something detrimental. Like now you have some rogue, former employee that's running something off the Facebook or TikTok or whatever, maligning you, using the brand name, using the brand logo, something they post something that's ignorant that now blows up. I mean, there's a lot that happens on the internet that crumbles businesses. But what is this concept, business continuity? Like, I don't even know if I totally understand it, right?
Yeah, no, it's a great one. With as far as like, there's business continuity that I think a lot of people are most familiar with, and that's going to come along with the operations. That's going to come along with processes and procedures and whatnot. From a digital continuity, though, we're looking at it more as what are the systems that are running this entire presence from start to finish. So from the first time that they see your brand online all the way into a successful conversion, but also what are the tools that are making that checkout process smoother, or what are the tools that are making that onboarding and intake a little bit smoother because you've got your CRM and an intake form connected together. And so, but there's all these little tools running in the background. You might have an extremely successful TikTok campaign running, but if we don't know what tools are being used specifically by that, you just know that the marketing team is handling it, and someone in that marketing team or your marketing vendor disappears, are we able to continue to create that same recipe? And if not, we have a gap in our digital continuity. If we've got the website going and running smoothly, like we had a client, they were running roughly 300 and some locations, and they had their website going, and then someone was like, I'm done, we're going to move on, I'm going to go to a different company now. And the IT company just cleaned the whole computer, just said, great, have a great day, swiped the whole computer clean. That was exactly how to use the website. All of the training documents were on that computer, and she was the only employee that had access to all of those documents from the previous developer. And so when that left, so did all of the knowledge of how to run a site with 300 some locations. While that's sometimes like a bit extreme, it can still happen with a 3 location. Or it can, we had another client that had a couple locations and the vendor disappeared and was like, no, I don't remember working on your site. And I hired you, I paid you. Can you make these changes, please? We no longer have this location. And they're like, no, we don't know what you're talking about. Well, I don't know the relationships into how everything gets to that, but that's just an example of a vendor disappears. And so now they're going, we don't know how to touch the site. We don't know how it was built. We don't know how to remove this fifth location. We just went through with them the other day. They thought they got everything. There are still so many links scattered to a location they've already sold off. It's no longer part of theirs anymore. And so that's the stuff where now you've got turnover. Now you've got vendors coming and going. What happens when you say, I no longer want to work with this vendor because I just don't like the results that we're getting? I want to hire this vendor. And they go, we set up Google Ads. That's ours. That's not yours. And so we're going to take that ad account. But that's what was working to some extent, or you already have research, you've got ad spend put in it, you were paying for that. But if you try to take that to a buyer, and you can't prove that you have access to this Google ad account, or hey, you have access as long as they keep this vendor on board, but as soon as they want to bring it in house, you're going to lose access to all of that. It doesn't look so great anymore. And so that's the continuity, is what are we doing with the turnover? What are we doing with the different tools? What login are we saying everything must be set up with this login, with this two-factor, and with this thing, so that we know no matter what happens, vendor, employee, whatnot, the company still maintains that ownership and that the business is never going down because of a gap in that continuity.
Well, and I think that when we're saying digital, when we're saying, all of these assets, I think people are just thinking website. It's not just
Mhm.
website, it's how
Mm-mm.
the internal business operates, because a lot of these things are mechanized. A lot of these things are just, okay, somebody orders online, and you could be like a parts distributor, right?
Yeah.
Somebody orders online, it then goes to shipping, it then goes and gets shipped. We follow up, all of these things. Like, it's really like, how are we digitally focused on the client? So it goes a little bit deeper than just like, how do you log into your website? Like, yeah, that's the marketing and other side. But at the end of the day, I think it's a good, it's sort of like inventory. Like, you might do inventory once a year. This might be a process that, if you have never heard of it in general, that it may be like almost like an audit, if you
Mhm.
will, of your systems and pulling it together. But if we take it even one step further, how should companies start to protect themselves? Not only maybe by doing this sort of audit so that you have it in writing, you know where everything is, you have like sort of a master roadmap check, and you have it like not with one person, like with multiple people. But then structurally, are you seeing companies needing to protect themselves? Like, because I could see like a breach in data, or if somebody had like even, an IT attack or something like that, could also impact this digital
Mhm.
assets, not just AI, but with everything technologically changing. Where do you see companies really needing to protect these assets, before they even consider sale?
I mean, they need to be looking at it throughout the entire process. I would say we probably field the better part of 5 to 10 calls a week alone I mean, we're a marketing agency, right? Full service marketing agency, but we see 5 to 10 calls alone of just, I'm locked out. What do I do? Some sort of panic, some sort of, hey, my website's down because this is going on. We had one call us because their web developer had passed away, but the web developer is the one who had domain, hosting, SSL, emails, website, everything. So all they could do was turn off their Google Ads. Well, I'm going to tell you, all of their revenue was coming from the Google Ads. That was the only marketing they were running. So for 3 weeks, they were just down. No website, no phone number that they could call other than the Google business profile. And then, like, how do we go and now retrieve a domain name when the person has passed away? So now, same thing. Do we get lawyers involved and try to get us death certificate to prove to these companies who the rightful owner is? Even though they can probably even prove some sort of trademark, it's not really doing anything to these hosting companies because they are protecting themselves. They are out for their best interest. And if they just randomly one day go, oh, you must be the owner of this site, let's hand it over, and they're not, that's not going to fly well. That's thousands and thousands of dollar lawsuit, right? So they have to take all of the right steps to do this. And that's where I say it can become a longer process than, oops, we forgot to renew. Let's just go renew that today. So we see it in, all areas where it's just, we thought it was in the right hands. We trusted the developer. We trusted the marketing team. We trusted, the IT team, whatever that looks like. So it's not always out of ill will either. An
Yeah.
employee can pass away tomorrow, and that's one of the key employees that understands how that works, right? So you're really needing to look at it from day one and put the whole process together as far as how do we protect and safeguard. And then the second one I usually say is, to your point, have 2 points of contact. I get a lot of calls and emails of clients, an employee that says, hey, we're going to go ahead and take this back over. Can you assign me ownership to blank account? Sure. Yeah, you guys are the clients. Let's go do that. And then immediately they remove us. Well, what that's now doing is putting everything in the hands of the employee, not the owner of the company. And
Mhm.
there is no second point of contact now. That's why our digital ownership and the digital continuity is so important, because it now starts to put that safeguard in place of no matter what happens, there's 2 points of contact that something can be, falling back on, and we can still recover and retrieve. Or as you get ready to exit, you're right. It's something you can say, hey, I'm telling you we have access to that. I'm telling you we have that. I'm telling you that's going to come as part of the sale. And the buyer's just taking your word for it. There's
Mhm.
really no proof having to be shown in that due diligence phase until the deal is signed. And that's where we really see a lot more of that. Like, you need to trust the seller then. You need to know that if they're saying yes, that they can in fact prove it, which is why you're going to start getting more questions. And if you start to hesitate on any of them, they start to wonder, can you really provide us Google Analytic numbers to show us why our marketing spend is this, what that ROI is, and that it does all in fact line up? And if you can't, they're going to start wondering back to the financial side. Now we've got questions on your finances. And so it does actually start to root a lot more into it than just, yes, I know where this is hosted.
Well, and it appears that, if you went in and did this sort of digital asset audit, right, you would expose, oh, we're
Mm-hmm.
being kind of tied up by the developer. Like it's almost like you're exploding these little micro issues immediately. Like, again, there might not be a great fix right then either. Like, you might, because a lot of developers, a lot of people have, like, they hold your website, they own your website, they've just sort of leased it to you in some capacity. But it feels like it would expose maybe some of those um, issues that you could then, because these are not always like fix it in a week issues, right? Like, this is a 6 month fix, or, you got to deal with the developer, negotiate with the developer, or something in that capacity that would kind of, help you. And that might lead into like some of the best practices that a business should do. Like, that, should they be doing this sort of in digital asset audit every month, every year? Should they be having, like, should you be the second point of contact so that you have all of that access, and then other people in my firm? Like, how does that look? Because I think a lot of businesses, as they expand, this is when, like, well, I knew where everything was, like, the five of us, and now there's 50 employees, and I don't know where everything is. So, like, what would you recommend that somebody kind of starts to do immediately if they are asking these questions? I don't know. And the answer is, I don't know where any of these things are.
Yeah, first I would start. We've got a free checklist that they can just start to identify some of the basic gaps. What are some of these points? And that's at truingdigital.com/valuation. They can download that and they will just start to be able to see, like, oh, we hadn't thought about that, or I didn't realize we had so many gaps that we hadn't put together and into place. So that's where I would start. Then with our ownership mapping framework, that's where we do take that deep dive, and to your point, really get into that audit, really get into, no, let's identify the gaps. Where do we need to get a better grasp on this? What does that look like? What are your plans? You've never put a plan in place for employee turnover with logins and this and that, or you don't have a central location in a way that you're tracking these logins, then let's start having that conversation. And what does that look like to start creating that, so that as you do continue to grow, you know what that process looks like and it should be. And keeping in mind that is separate than operations. Operations is more of the day to day, how's everything, moving and working and whatnot. But this is going to look at, how do we keep, how do we make sure that the website goes down? Who's in charge? Who do we call? And a lot of times, if you've got multiple vendors and a few employees in there, everyone's pointing fingers at one another, and all that's doing is delaying how quickly your site can get back up. If you've got, one person saying, "Hey, no, I thought I updated the hours on the Google Business profile," and someone going, "Oh no, we do that," and yet nothing's getting updated. Like, how long till we get it fixed? Who actually has ownership to hop in there and make that change? And so, there's a lot of ways that it starts to impact. After that, then I say move into the digital continuity method, like system, where we work alongside you pretty much for as long as you want to say, let's make sure that your website doesn't go down. What are the contracts and agreements with these different vendors? Is it working? Is it not? Do you in fact own this? What we get is clients that'll call and say, hey, got an employee. We're going to let them go next week. Can we start getting logins changed? we don't we don't know what you have access to. Like, we don't
Mm,
even know if they have access to all of these, to two of these. We don't know your entire system. So that's where that digital continuity system comes in, is because if they're asking us, that means they don't know either. And so
mm,
we need to get ahead of it so that we can safeguard the company, as you were mentioning, just different ways that some things can come up. And so, and it, again, it doesn't always have to be on negative terms. It's just,
right.
what's the quick protocol if something were to happen? A passing, we need to get this changed so that the next person can step in and pick up without business slowing down for any reason. And so that's where we start to do that digital continuity, so that you can just email us and say, hey, this person, we need to update the email address on file, or we need to update the credit card on file. We have access to all of that. We know where it's at. It's already handled, and you're off and running, and you never saw a hiccup in the company.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and the fact of the matter is, especially online, especially with social, you're not going to know, like, fortunately for me, somebody who has worked with me for quite a long time, then they started their own business and we ended up switching the email, right? Because I was like, okay, well, let's have everything going to your other email if that's the one you use. And it immediately triggered, like, there were certain things that were two-party authentication to her cell phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then did we have the right, like, she had switched cell phone, like, oh my god, like all of these things. And it's almost like you have to pressure test some of these things on a regular basis because you almost don't know what they're connected to in some capacity. And again, this should be scaring the bejeebers out of some of these business owners. Like, I was just a little bit unaware of how deep this kind of went because I was like, oh, your website, oh, this. But when you start to get into it, and it's frustrating because, like, I remember I tried to log into something and it was like, oh, we'll send that to some sort of phone number. And I was like, whose phone number is that? Like, how long ago was that phone number? And I'm like calling her. I'm like, is this your? Oh no, it's somebody else. Like, and if you outsource, because we have some people that are absolutely part of our team. We love them, but they're in Pakistan. And
Yeah.
every time they try to do something, it literally triggers security, like, security, like, what happened? And I'm like, okay, she got logged out. Okay, now it's like, oh, did you log in? Like, all of that is just, in my mind, wasteful time
Mm-hmm.
that comes out of your day when you should be either working with clients or working at sales capacities and things like that. So we talked a lot about, this type of things. I think the one area that I just was more interested in but as things are changing, do you see a lot of value still in the websites, or are people moving towards these other types of platforms, or like getting business? Because you talked about even Google Ads and the Google Council and all of this thing. Like, what do we still believe about SEO, AEO, websites, digital presence that you think is sort of like, if you could tell me the future, like, hey, you and I would be thinking about this, like, what are some areas that we're just so blind to that you think are going to be big deals in the future for businesses?
I have really enjoyed this question lately because it's one of those that, we do a lot with AI, and at the same time, we still strongly believe there's a reason humans should be running your Google ads and putting certain, I just saw a post go out on social media the other day. Totally had a misspelling in it. Know for a fact it was an AI created artwork graphic chart to use on social because that's the shortcut. And you can't really, once that graphic is created, you can't go back to it and be like, hey, can you actually spell that word correctly? Because they're not connecting that concept. So
Right,
as soon as you ask it to change something, it throws off the whole image that you might have liked everything, but there was a misspelling. But also, the misspelling went out the door on a very, very well known, influential person. And I
yeah,
went back up to the comment too, and sure enough, it wasn't spelled wrong. It was correct in the actual social post. So that's where you even know this is an AI created artwork that someone either didn't proof or allowed to go because AI created it and AI doesn't screw up. And I'm saying that in air quotes. Like, there's still things it's not fully ready for. And so you still need to have humans checking those things. So that's why I always like it as a question as a marketing company is there's still a lot that we need to kind of suss out with it all and see what that looks like. And being in business for the last 16 years, we've gone through a lot of it. I started WordPress website design when it was literally a blogging platform and you could not change the menu on what menu items showed up. Bare bones, right? To everything that it is today. SEO, where backlink building was the thing, that got banned. And now here we are today with SEO being a completely different way to run. And this is what we're seeing is the shiny object.
yeah,
Everyone sees
yeah,
AI. Everyone feels they need to jump to it. Everyone feels they need to be optimizing for the LLMs and the AI platforms now. But I'm going to tell you, it's not up to date like that. It isn't pulling the most recent current information as of last hour. It is
mm-hmm.
pulling information it was trained on. So these
Mm-hmm.
companies are coming in saying, we'll get you ranking. And yes, as a business owner, that sounds amazing to be showing up in the LLMs when people are asking for you. And it's great to see it in your analytics that, wow, we're getting traffic from a different source finally that we didn't really put a lot of effort into. But the companies that are promising overnight results or just drastic results, that's not how the system works. And so we're really seeing a lot of them wasting marketing money, draining it down, thinking they're going to hit the sweet sauce. But keep in mind, that was also what SEO did at the beginning.
Yeah,
And we're seeing it. We had a client call us the other day. This was a great conversation. It was like, well, I don't know why I would leave this platform. They just told me that they're going to create 500 FAQ pages, and FAQs are what's leading the LLMs to, display me in the results. And I'm like, but is it quality or quantity that you
yeah,
want
yeah,
representing your brand? And if you build all of these, it's no different than back in the day with SEO when you just built millions of or billion, whatever, links, right?
yep,
It got banned, sites got penalized, and now we're spending more money to fix it. So
yep,
I really think that it's like, be careful. Know
yeah,
why you're doing it. What are you actually going to get? How are you measuring results? Did they just pop up overnight? Because I'm telling you, we've seen a lot of that too. Of, oh, I'm doing on the side. I'll make some money right now. I'll go to AI, have it create a website, and now all of a sudden it's a marketing agency that hasn't even been in business for 3 months, but or even ran SEO, but they're going to tell you they're going to get you ranking in these LLMs and AEO optimization and all of that. You
yeah,
still need a solid SEO foundation to
yeah,
make that happen. And so That's one of it where I see with AI is like we aren't fully getting the big picture. We're just hearing how amazing it is, but people aren't slowing down to talk about it. The second is I'm seeing them get built into, we were talking about ownership. A lot of them are building AI websites, but they don't actually know how to do the code. So if they can't figure out how to tweak an image and prompt it to do this, or you want it to do more than what the AI is capable of, they don't know how to code. They're not coders. And so now you have this site, they own it, they don't know how to update the code, and you're tied and locked into them. And if you want to leave, you have to go to a whole new company and pay for a website all over again
Well,
because they own the site,
yeah.
not you. To you said it earlier best. You're leasing that site from them, and if you end that contract, might be really really great to see a monthly fee instead of a one-time website fee, but that is a lease, and they own your website. And if they are
Mm,
not delivering or they don't know how to actually do the coded side, you're
yeah.
rebuilding a whole thing and reinvesting. You're just wasting money. So there's a lot there with AI right now.
Well, and I will tell you, probably nobody totally understood what you were just talking about because, and like, you are so dead on with the AEO and that sort of AI overview that's in Google right now, because we kind of still stayed with the SEO, but we started to
Mm-hmm.
employ a lot of AEO and the FAQs and everything. And I started looking at it like literally yesterday, and I was like, why is that? Why are they pulling from these other sites? Like, why are these links? Like, these look really not like it's updating. So like, you just validated a lot of what I was questioning, a little bit of that. And again, I will say that if you don't have a clue of the difference between SEO and AEO, you're not wrong, like you're not behind, but you need to get with the program. Like, these things are changing everything that we do, and I love the conversation, but at the end of the day, you've said it a couple times, you guys are a full service marketing company. So talk to me more, like at this point, if y'all haven't drank the Kool-Aid, that you should be talking to Paige, because she's talking about stuff that you have no clue about, and but you need it not only to sell your company, to market your company. Like, marketing is changing. I think where I would see you as more like a global strategy, like, absolutely, can you use AI to create blogs and posts on social and hooks and all of that? Yeah, absolutely. Can you use outsourcing? Like, we use a lot of outsourcing to make sure that our platforms are being posted out every day, every day, every day. But at the end of the time, you need a major strategist to
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, let's make sure we centrally understand where this is going. And it's not an employee that could leave. It's not a marketing woo woo SEO Google, because like, that is not necessarily the wave of the future. But if they want to contact you, I'm going to show some of your contact. But tell us more about like you, Paige, your company, where your focus is right now from a marketing standpoint, where you see companies maybe wanting to leverage your services. But, this is an opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about you and how they could reach out to you.
Yeah, thank you for that. As you mentioned, yeah, so we're full service digital agency, been in business for 16 years, and really with that has come a lot of adapting and then to some extent pivoting and just figuring out technology changes. It changes very quickly, and we have to figure out what do we need to do to make that happen. During COVID, I can't tell you how many clients were running social media campaigns, and as people started going back out and adventuring into public again, that service slowed down. We don't see as many people aggressively doing that like they were, but that's how they knew to get in front of people. Now we can go back to some other models. But you always have to be paying attention to like how are they finding you and what is the intent. And so to your point, that's what we really look at is we can run a variety of marketing services. There's a reason that we didn't niche into Google ads. They're just SEO or just, a certain service. It's because we really feel it's about coming in and saying, but what are your goals? What is the right way to achieve this and do that? And it's may not be Google ads. And like we can run SEO, and at the same time, to your point, if we want to get into AI optimization, we still need a solid SEO foundation. I've always said that even with content marketing, don't just list 10,000 blogs because you think you need to have blogs. If you're not optimizing your website, you're still never going to get found. You can put as many of them out there as you want, but if you're not doing best practices of SEO, then you're just wasting time and money. So that's really where we come in and start looking at the big picture of it all and deciding what is the right strategy? How do we want to make that? What's the right budget? A lot of times we'll come in and say, let's start at a little bit smaller budget and prove that your website converts. If your website's not converting, why are we throwing thousands of dollars away in ads or social or whatever only to drive them to a site that isn't doing anything? And it might not be that the site sucks. It's just that it's not converting. The messaging isn't hitting. It's not got their call to actions in the right spot, whatever that looks like. And that's really what I've started building the business on, is looking at the entire journey and making the decisions, looking at the statistics and the numbers and making the decisions, instead of just, we built you a pretty website, you can go to a different company now and find, a marketing team. Or, hey, we're running marketing and we're just going to tell you what the ad conversion is. I don't care. I
Yeah.
care what the website conversion is off of that revenue that we spent, or the budget that we spent. And so until you can really start answering those questions, I don't want to say, let's rebuild your site tomorrow. You might not need a website rebuild. You might just need a stronger call to action someplace, or maybe some new photos, or just little tweaks. So we're really coming in more as that support and like tech team to say, how do we automate this more? Why is your CRM not connected into your website? Let's make your job easier. Let's make your team's job easier and streamline these things. And so we've always been looking at that big picture. That's where we just started seeing more and more of the ownership start to come up, though, of no one's taking ownership and no one knows how to connect all of those dots. Marketing companies are focused on marketing. Web companies are focused on web, but I'm going to tell you, most don't understand server side. We've got 3 in-house technicians that handle our servers, so we also understand the technical side of a website. And then from there, we're just always answering the questions for the clients. Why is this? What's this? Do I need to worry about this? Is this a scam? And just there is a trusted resource. And so that's really where we've been able to grow our relationships with our clients over the years, is just, hey, let's really figure out what's needed and what's not.
No, I mean, I think it's so crazy, but you're right. Like we used to have websites that would be like the end all be all for, like all like so many pages, huge amounts, get it all this. And I think it's consolidating. It's how the automation, is it working well for you? Is it converting? Like even right now, I'm like, why do we not have an email marketing that is like somebody downloaded something and it's just like crickets, like we're like, thanks.
No, I did it the other day
Do
too with
you
my team. I
never?
was like, I think someone's signing up, but like, we aren't really getting notified. We just hope that they follow the call to action, which is book an assessment, right? But like, I didn't get a notification that we had 3 new people opt into our email list. Do I want to get that? Is that too much? Should it be going to our CRM? Like, what are we doing to nurture it a tiny bit better? Or just even know, like, wow, yeah, we did have X amount of people sign up to this. So, there's always things, but it's so many things to pay attention to. And that's where it starts to get really hard. And the more vendors and employees you've got involved in that, that's where we start seeing more and more of the disconnects and the gaps, is we're no longer seeing, oh yeah, someone followed this journey from start to finish and has taken full ownership to know that campaign is 100% set up. I had a, like even just when you're building a landing page and the button says click here and it's supposed to drop them down further in the page. Did it do it or not? That's how they thought they coded it, but they never checked it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, now you've got this campaign out there running, and once it's up, most of the time people aren't going back, and so that's
Yeah.
where we like to look at the user experience on the website side too, not just the campaign, because it might be the campaign's working great. You've just got an issue someplace else.
Yeah, we like launched some sort of like landing page that sold something, and the person sent us, and they're like, well, site title here sent me something, and when we tested it out, and I was like, dude, how do you change the site title?
Right. Why did this happen?
Yeah, because it was literally like it was almost like it came anonymous, right? Like that's essentially what they, instead of it saying, oh, it came from the divorce vault, it came from your site title here, So again, if you're not, and a lot of times we're moving so quickly
Mm-hmm.
that if we're not testing out things or we're not making sure that they work, you don't know that they don't work until a client wants to buy from you and they cannot, right? And that's not really the time that you want to, because all of those user experiences are what shapes your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I tried to buy online, but I couldn't, and then I couldn't do this, and it makes you more inefficient. So I think this has been amazing. I really appreciate all of your time in here. If they want to connect with you, this is your LinkedIn. You're
Yep.
really active on LinkedIn. I prefer other platforms, but I still like LinkedIn too. But we also put in for the treeringdigital.com/valuation. That is actually a download that they could download and kind of get some more information, or like the seven. Tell me more about what was the download.
Yeah, so that's our digital asset protection checklist. So they can download that, and that's going to outline what the 7 pillars are. It's going to give them a physical checklist where you can go through and have we done this? Have we not? Do we know where this is? Do we know who's in charge of it? And really work through it, see what some of those touch points look like. And then from there, as you start to identify gaps, reaching out and saying, what do we do? What's the next step? Where do we take this from here? And what's best for our company? Because we had it the other day, a client coming and saying, I don't know if I want to sell or just move to a new and start, take the business to a new location. What makes more sense? And so we came in and started having that conversation with them of, what should we do here? Do you have a better valuation by selling the business in your current location that you've been doing business for X amount of years? Or is there more value in moving that whole business and restarting your entire book in a different location simply because you're going to be doing the same service?
Mm-hmm.
Or, I think there's probably more weight in trying to get the business offloaded and exiting out of in that state you've been in for so long and start new in this new city instead of trying like there's not going to be a ton of value getting started in a new one. You're
Yeah,
basically starting from the ground up anyway. So those
right.
are conversations that we come in and start having, and we really specialize more in that exiting and on the buying side as well as M&A work. So we are
Yeah.
able to have more of that kind of conversation with clients too.
Well, and we didn't really talk about the value of digital assets and things like that, because at the end of the day, when you and I started talking, we quickly identified, like, if you're going to market and you are selling your company and you don't have a firm grasp on this, it's going to either decline your value, it's going to create that they're going to retrade your value and say, okay, or you're going to have an after transaction or post transaction litigation, and you're going to have a whole bunch of cleanup when they start to figure out that they didn't receive all the assets, or it didn't convert very well, or they can't log in. Like, do you want to spend the next several months after you close a transaction literally on the phone, like, oh, okay, here's your two-party authenticity, like, blah blah blah, like, it's just not necessary. This is a lot of preemptive. So just as much as we spend on cleaning up the financials, we now are in a digital age that we need to understand these assets. If you need to protect them or value them, if anything, if you don't know about them, it's going to decline your value across the board. So please reach out to Paige. And I'm sure that if she would be so kind, I'm going to invite her back because I want to talk about more fun stuff like AI and TikTok and these things.
Absolutely.
But we appreciate you. So thanks, Paige.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. It's always been a good conversation with you.
Yeah, awesome. We'll see you soon.